usually give it a couple seconds.
Okay.
Um, oh, that's sweet. I'm gonna go live in Instagram too,
Okay.
and I'll introduce you in just a second. I ain't about to go live on Instagram. Okay. All right, cool. So my phone said we're not doing that. So, hey y'all, this is Ashley. I'm the founder of Cannabis Nursing School, and today we are celebrating 420. We are I've been here all day, y'all. Like I knew this was gonna happen. Like as soon as I tipped over the second half of the day, I'm tapped out. But it don't matter. I'm here. I'm working through it. And I wanted to introduce Sharetta. She's also a part of the tribe. She is a herbalist and entrepreneur and just an overall spiritual being. And it's been a pleasure watching her in her journey. And so I'll let her introduce herself and talk about everything that she has to share with you. So go ahead.
All right. How you guys doing? My name is Sharetta Scott. I go by the name of Nurse Sharetta. I am the owner of Canna Bee Hypnotized, Canna Bee Vibes. And basically, my company and my business entails it has started off with just teaching about the education and awareness of CBD and cannabis products. I found that there was like a strong lack in that with people knowing what it was. They were saying that, CBD was fake cannabis, and I had to actually understand that some people didn't really know. So I started to educate. But in the midst of me educating, I also study herbs. In my home, we use a lot of natural remedies, homeopathic, and all sorts. And so, with me and my husband, we have a family owned and operated business where we have a mom and pop's convenience store. So a lot of times I have a lot of the customers who are more like family to us that come in and they know that I know a lot about different things. They would ask me questions. So I would, do a little research, give them the answer back. And then in the midst of me doing that and working with CBD, I decided to create my own products.
Mm.
And so the first product I decided to create was a bath salt. And the bath salt was basically overall for your health benefits, but it was also for the spiritual benefits as well. So with this bath salt, you can actually have it with CBD or without CBD. And it's very infused with natural herbs from lavender to chamomile to rose petals. And it's very relaxing. And I started seeing that I had a couple customers that came in and they had issues with so I was able to create a salve. And during that creation, I decided to study herbs, learn about herbs more. But then I started to ask myself a lot of questions like, could this be a thing that can help people navigate away from the traditional pharmaceutical or traditional, you know, medical aspect of things and use more things that are herbal and
Hmm.
holistic. And so as I started to look at things and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, cannabis is a plant and a lot of people are going to the holistic part and the herbal part of the wellness of themselves where they're using the plants that come from the earth.
Hmm.
So that made me to expand out more and to teach about other products because of the stigma with cannabis. There's people that still know that there's research that has been done that shows that it does help with certain ailments and it helps them and, can help with this and help with cancer and all that. But they're still kind of, shy away from it because it's not prescribed by an actual medical professional.
Yeah.
So I had to understand as a nurse, we do have voices and we are the patient's advocate. Even when we work from the hospitals to the nursing homes to wherever, we are the initial ones that speak to the patients first. So we are their most trusted advocate. So if we're
Hmm.
the most trusted advocate, we can find an avenue where they don't have to be on 15 different meds and they can use natural herbs then they'll be more willing to listen to us and to understand, especially when you come with the research and you're also a medical professional, so they're going to trust you a little bit more.
Absolutely. I think you touched on a lot of stuff in that very short introduction. So you mentioned homeopathic herbs. Is that, I think that was a statement you made.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So like with my children, if they get a little cough or something like that, I will make like elderberry syrup, but my husband and I will also buy like Zarbee's or Highlands, where it's just strictly homeopathic, where it's just strictly herbs and it's made into something that they can actually take and they can actually use.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, that's good. So then, I started to create my own products and stuff. My kids complain of a cough. I'm going to have some tea with some mullein and things in there. So the homeopathic part comes from the actual, medication, the Zarbees, even the little teething tablets for babies. You try to find something where you're not using, things that can cause them to have adverse reactions, you know.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's important. I don't think we know enough about like what that means in like when we're choosing it. Is there any way you could kind of like how do you discern what homeopathic herbs to use and when to use them and where to find them?
So I like the products like Zarbee's and stuff. Me and my husband we read the labels,
Mm-hmm.
so we don't do anything with any dye. No high toe fructose corn syrup. So a lot of times, with a baby, a child or a baby is under 2, they can't have any honey. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the products that they have for babies, they have it with agave, and then instead of using peppermint, they use ivy. And so it's certain herbs that I've learned that young babies can't have or children can't have, even down to when you do like the Vicks vapor rub. I don't do the Vicks vapor rub. I do the Zarbee's rub for the kids. And it smells kind of like mentholy, but it's got winter fresh in it,
Mm-hmm.
it's got spearmint, and it's got lavender for calming. So it works, for the children. It works for my kids. So
Yeah.
it's something, that's kind of great in that aspect. But when you look for it, you have to actually, if you can't pronounce the name and it doesn't have the actual name of what this herb is, then it's like, to me, it's kind of hiding something.
Mm-hmm.
When you go and you look at the Zarbees, it'll tell you that it has ivy in it, or it will tell you that it has, this in it, So I tell people to kind of look for that. And if you are looking at some natural herbs or essential oils, kind of be careful and understand what can work and what cannot work. And also, if you're going to use an essential oil, make sure that you dilute it so you don't get any burns, because it's very, very concentrated.
Yeah, no, I think that's super important. And so you also mentioned about the stigma around nurses. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a lot of stigma around nurses, um, depending on it. I wouldn't even say depending on which specialty it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that either when you come out of nursing school, when you have years of training, either you're going to be a good nurse or you're going to be a bad nurse. And most nurses who are great nurses are tend to be the ones that get a lot burnt out the quickest, because we also want to make sure that the patient is taken care of first,
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, we also make sure that the patient understands. A lot of times a doctor can talk to a patient and their tone or their verbiage of what they're saying can go over the head of the patient. So we're able to break it down in a way where they understand. And if they don't understand, then they can say, okay, I don't understand that. Can you break that down into simpler terms? So
Yeah,
it's like, how it is when they come in and we take vitals, whether we triage them or they come into the doctor's office, they see the nurse first. So
yeah,
that,
yeah,
and then the other stigma is about, sometimes, with nurses, we are like the front line of everything. So if they don't have such a good visit with the doctor, we always got to go and clean it up and to make them feel better.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
how it is actually.
definitely, definitely. So let me ask you this: like, why do you do what you do? So you mentioned the stigma. I think we've had a lot of conversation around stigma and like the fact that it does make it a challenge in this industry. So why do you why do you choose this space?
Well, I choose this space because years ago, when we started the business that we have now, it's been about 11 years. I came out of nursing and I went full on fledged as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
But, I still wanted to do something. I've always been a person that helps other people, whether it's some remedies that I give you or something like that. So when it came up to talking about, a CBD and the health benefits of it and how it could help people with different ailments, and me myself, like I can attest to it that CBD does work whether you're using it topical or whether you're ingesting it, because I have seen other people who have used it and it's worked for them and they're like, wow, I didn't
Yeah,
really think this would work. I just gave it a try because you talked to me and you explained it. But also, it's just the sheer benefit of having something that you can actually grow physically yourself,
yeah,
and you know what's in it. You know where it came from because you can grow it. Whether you
yeah,
use lavender to make tea or, you use it for the smell or whatever, you can actually plant lavender. And I want people to actually know exactly where the things come from, because a lot of times the medications and stuff that we get, people are thinking they're getting the medications, but a lot of times they're getting the placebo, which is a sugar pill.
mm-hmm.
Or this medication causes this side effect, so they're going to treat this side effect, and so on and so on. So then you're left with taking a whole bunch of medications when
Yeah.
you can just have certain herbs that you can have, and they can have many sources of uses that you can use, in your household and with yourself.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. So you brought up some of healthcare's ethical bloopers.
Yeah.
you know, because there are a lot of things that if you go back in history, you look at some of the practices that have been done on certain groups of people, women, black people, the list goes on, children. And
Yeah.
so and so the what we have, the information that we have a lot of times is distorted because of those ethical issues that we deal with in the hospital setting. And so I think what that lends to, and I guess this is where you were going, you know why not consider something that might be natural, that comes from the ground, that you can grow, right? Like,
Exactly.
I think that ends up being a question. Like, why not? Like, it's not about why should you or why, and it's not even why should you, like, why consider it? Why add that to the list of things that you would choose, you know?
And I agree with you on that too. And then also, I guess, I'm young, so I'm a young generation. But my grandmother, um, she was in her 90s when she passed, so a lot of things I learned from her.
Hmm.
And they really didn't use a lot of medicine. They used like a lot of old school remedies. And when I say some of this stuff, some of y'all gonna know what it is, and some of y'all are not. But like, if we got sick and we got a really bad chest cold, it was onion tea or hot tea toddy.
Hmm.
They would make, my grandmother would make a salve that she would make and put on your chest. um, I remember, one time my grandmother tried to give me some cod liver oil to clean me out, and I threw it back up, and I was like, "Ooh, grandma!"
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "Yeah, we went through that." And then my grandmother also told me, she was like, if your children ever get chicken pox, she was like, fix them some catnip tea and make them all drink it and put them all in the room together. She was
Hmm.
like, that way you can deal with it all at one time. They're immune to it, and they go on about their business. So it's just little things and trinkets that I've taken in that really works. People, they have indigestion, and I'd be like, baby, get you a little baking soda water. They'd be like, that really works. And I'd be like, yeah, because you eat a whole lot of Tums, and that's really not good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to give them a little bit something else that may work, because some people get so used to taking certain medications that the medication doesn't even work for them anymore,
Yeah.
or it's causing problem with the liver and the kidneys, or it's then ate up the esophagus and stuff like that. And I'm like, you don't want to go down that road, so come on, let's try something else.
Yeah, definitely. And really it's everything, again, everything isn't for everybody, right? Like,
No.
but the overconsumption of pharmaceuticals, I think, is where my concern lies, because
Hmm.
this is manufactured products that who knows really what you're putting in. So there's no
Yeah.
real label on the medicine that you're taking. So with that being said, is there risk on on both ends? You know, is there a risk related to overconsumption of certain herbs? Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
You know, and so I think really it's about just really offering the freedom of choice for our patients, which is why healthcare providers need to be knowledgeable and at least be able to have conversations. The other thing is patients are going to do this whether or not we endorse it or not.
Yes, they are.
Well, if your grandmother told you 90 years ago that that's what they did and that's what she passed down, and here I come walking into a room and telling you, no, baby, don't drink that tea, who you going to listen to? It ain't
I'm
going
gonna
to be
listen to my
me.
grandma.
Right. It ain't going to be me. So I think, you know, there needs to be a respect on how people live their lifestyles. And so I love the fact that, like, within the tribe, and even like in dealing with you and some of the other girls in the tribe, even my awareness has been expanded in certain ways where I'm recognizing like certain practices are just part of your lifestyle, part of your environment. And, you know,
Hmm.
those are the things that you are passing on and teaching to the people, the clients that you serve. You see what I'm saying? And because that's where the real knowledge comes in. Like that's, it's innate. You just know it. It's not something that you teach on in a classroom because they don't do it because the
Hmm.
society said so.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you said that because I'm learning too more in line of everything that we do. It also has some type of spiritual awareness or gain to it, you know.
Mhm.
And even with cannabis itself or herbs itself or pharmaceutical medicine itself, some people become addicted to it, where like you know they may not have no pain, but they have an onset of a headache, so they quickly pop a Motrin, and they really don't assess where this headache is coming. You could having tension in the back of your neck. It could be stress, or
Mhm.
you can have a temple headache, and it could be a possible risk for aneurysm. Or sinus pain. I've seen a lot of people where they're popping Tylenol, but they're having sinus pain, and I'm like, baby, you don't need Tylenol because it's not going to help for the sinuses. It's still going to hurt. You just need to get it cleansed out, or do this. So sometimes I think certain medicines that are shown on commercials and everything, everybody flocks to them because they really think that they work. And it's just a way of them trying to sell this product and to make money off of it. And the pharmaceutical industry is $1 billion industry. But
Yeah.
if people really go back and learn the history, the pharmaceutical business was made in the early 1930s because of the herbal and the holistic
Benefits.
population was, actually curing and helping and healing ailments. So, the government wanted a piece of the pie and they wanted a part of it. So they started to making it like it was prohibited, and then they started coming out with medications over the years. But I
Mhm.
also tell people to pay attention because, medicine that my mom and them took years and years ago, 20, 30 years later, 40 years later, you're seeing commercials saying if you have taken this medicine, and
Yes.
these different lawsuits and stuff. And I'm just like, okay. Or when they're doing the commercials, they'll tell you that it's good for this, and these are the side effects. And the side effects are headache, weight
Suicide.
loss. Yeah,
Right.
and I'm like, suicide. Like, it's kind of like, okay, even with the cannabis industry. And I tell people, like, you know, cannabis was used early on. They made cough syrups out of it. And they used it when women were giving birth and everything. And people are looking at me crazy. And I'm like, yes. And I have to show them, pictures and stuff of this stuff. They actually have a museum where it
Yeah.
has, all of this stuff that was used in it, but it was overly processed and overly used. And it
Yeah.
still is till today. A lot of people, instead of using cannabis for their ailments and as a regimen, like a regimen, to help you get through your day, they're
Mhm.
using it to basically zone out away from their day. You know, they want to be that, oh, I want to be stuck and stupid. And I'm just like, why? You know,
Yeah.
you don't want to use it because your legs or your knees are bothering you and you're not able to work in your garden or you're not able to walk. But if you use this and you're able to walk, going from walking to exercising to, being more happier because you're no longer being bought down by the ailments that you have going on. Because a lot of people, when you have ailments going on, they entail suffer from depression or anxieties and everything like that. So I just kind of see that in a way. I know some people may agree with me and some people don't, but me personally, I seen it work for other people. And then if some people would just give it a try, because if this doctor comes in here and says, oh, we got this new medication and it's a
Right.
trial
It's a
medication, but I
trial.
seen it work, they'll be like, oh, I want that. And I'll be like, it's a trial. They don't have no research, no nothing. And just
Nothing.
because the doctor said, oh, yeah, it's been going great with some of our patients, knowing that this doctor is selling this for this pharmaceutical company so they can get
Mhm.
them plane tickets or a free vacation, and stuff like that. But us out here as nurses, we're like, no, 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 no. We want to help you. It's not about what freebies we get. You know, it
We don't get
makes it
free.
easy.
We don't get freebies.
No, we don't get
We don't
nothing.
get
It
no
just
freebies. We just get lunch.
nothing. Nothing. And
We
I'm like,
just
it
get
makes me
lunch.
feel better when you say, oh, what you did for me, it helped me and it gave me a better understanding and I'm able to further gain knowledge of XYZ, then that makes me feel like my mission has been accomplished.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the thing I really like, because people say, oh, will you ever go back into the hospitals or the doctor's office or nursing homes? I was like, no.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if y'all gonna catch me there. I don't know if y'all gonna catch me there. You brought up a lot of good points. The marketing strategies for pharmaceutical companies. The intention for investing in any type of marketing is for a return on investment. That's a fact. The commodification of the patient situation, right? Like that's essentially what we're dealing with. I think the other piece of it is our the average population of people, they don't really know that you don't take this pill for everything, right? So like in the Black community, we're just going to pop a Tylenol or an Aleve, and for my knee pain or my back pain and that kind of stuff, and we really don't take time to look into the root cause you know
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, and I totally agree with you on that. They'd be like, "Oh, well, in our store, because we do sell, certain medications. A
Mm-hmm.
big one that they do buy is between Tylenol and BC powder."
Yep. Yep.
And I'm like, BC powder eats up your stomach, like it, so
Because
I
there's side
just
effects. There are real side
Mhm.
effects to taking that stuff that we think is harmless.
Mhm. So a lot of, like I said, I have a lot more people that come in and they ask me about natural things and natural remedies because they know that I'm a very natural person. They
Hmm.
were like, "Oh, you went old school because you had your baby at home." I yes, I did. you know,
That's
I'm
amazing.
like, yeah, I was like, I if I get a toothache, I'm not going to, go and pop some Tylenol. I'm going to get me some clove oil, or I'm going to get some vanilla extract on a cotton ball and put it in my mouth. I
Yeah.
try to use medicine as the last resort of things because there are so many side effects. I have seen, people go through and do medicine and they've lost hair, they've lost weight, and they suffer from body image,
Mhm.
things, and they don't want to go out because their hair is bald and they wear hats, or, and I don't like seeing people, like that, because they go from being happy, full of life people to be like, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, it makes me feel, kind of bad. So me doing what I do with this is to help people, but I also do it for my family and to help out in my household, because
Yeah.
my daughter, she'd be like, "Mommy, I don't feel good. I got a cold." We're pushing tea, we're doing lemon and
Yeah.
honey and all that. And I'll be like, "Baby, what soup do you want your mama to make?" I'll
Yeah.
make her some homemade soup and, stuff like that. And I think it's time for us to get back into the notion of that, because we're having too much going on, even down to the formula with the
Mhm.
babies. There's, seeing that if your baby suffered from this formula, so it's just, you know, a thing overall. And, I want people to, get more to it, because I know when the pandemic started and everybody took running off with the CMOS thing, and a lot of people were getting fake CMOS
Oh my
and
God, that was
everything like that,
terrible.
and they wasn't doing their research and everything like that. And
Hmm.
so I'm just like, you have to do your research. Just because you see somebody that's got a lot of followers say something or something about it, just don't run and do what the person is doing without doing your own research. And if you can't find the research, then you can always have someone to reach out, whether it's me as a nurse or herbalist. You can reach out to other herbalists. There's other herbalists in this community. There's other people that you can reach out and learn from, because the one thing I don't want to see is you messing yourself up or hurting yourself because you're trying to fast or do intermittent fast, and then you're doing CMOS and all this, and like, oh, that didn't work for me, so now you're back to your same routine because it didn't work for you, because what works for somebody else may not work for you.
Absolutely. I mean, because we have to recognize that we're all individualized beings and we all need different things, electrolytes, different types of
Hmm.
energy, different types of foods, herbs, whatever it is. So, I think a lot of times we're always put in the categories where it's assumed that all the things are going to work for us. But, most of the time, I'd like to say, I don't feel like anything that anybody's ever given me really ever works.
Yeah.
And I would like to say that this too, when we're talking about herbs and we're talking about holistic options for people, a lot of people don't realize that you don't get immediate results. Like, it's a very progressive nature. So even like the impact of stress, right? People talk about the impact of stress. You spend 10 years in the chronic stress, and then all of a sudden you drop off the stress, but now you're dealing with all the effects of the
Yeah.
stress over time, right? And so it takes you equally as much time to alleviate your body's response mechanism to the stress as it did for you to put it on. So you be like, oh, I'm no longer in stress anymore, but your body's still operating in fight or flight because it's already been
Yeah.
conditioned to do that. And so what the holistic options really do is to help you bring more balance and decrease it over time, and so then you can kind of bring your body back into homeostasis the way that it was intended to be. My last point. There's a lot of stuff that's out here in the world. I was going to cuss, but see, I've been watching that lately.
Good
There's
job.
a lot of stuff that's out here lately, that influence the way our body operates, and a lot of it is
Hmm.
environmental. And so sometimes we
Yes.
just be a little bit more like intentional about how can I just be a little bit more aligned with nature. Can I go take a walk today? Can I go smell the roses? Can I just plant something or whatever that brings you back? Take a walk in the woods. I love taking walks in the woods. Um,
Hmm.
just so you can just be present with yourself so that way you know what's going on.
Yeah, well, as you know, and all the rest of the tribe knows, I'm quite frequently down at my spot by the water. Like, my
Yeah.
spot by the water is my safe haven. It's my place. It's my release. I just like listening to the water and watching the flow of the water. If you ever watch the flow of a river or the sea, the currents, all the currents never go the same way. They just go and they flow in different, rhythms, but it's so pretty to see it. You watching the flow of everything, it kind of takes your mind off of stuff. But I do agree with you, like, even with, like you said, like, if you have to change your diet and your doctor says you have to change your diet, overall it's not going to change in 5 days. It's probably going to take at least 6 months to a year for you to get used to that diet,
Hmm.
because you're going to have the cravings, you're going to have the taste for the things that you no longer can have, but you have to supplement them things. I've talked to a lot of my customers, like, oh, my cholesterol is high, what herbs can I use it for that? I said, before you start looking for herbs, how about what things can we modify in your diet
That
that
part
could
right
help
there.
you?
Hmm.
If you're frying stuff, instead of frying in vegetable oil, why don't you try olive oil or grapeseed oil? Or may not just fry it, but if you still want that crunchiness, you can put it
Yeah.
in your oven.
Hmm.
I'm like, instead of doing this type of thing, you can do this type of thing. And I said, even when it goes down to drinking water, I said, I don't drink tap water. We drink spring water. And
Mm-hmm.
if I want a little flavor to my water, add a little fruit to your water.
Right.
If you may not like that, then they have waters that's got some type of flavor to it. But I was like, we have to kind of, I said, it could be one little thing that you can actually change, and it can change the mechanism of in your mind and everything like that, that you just kind of tweak. Even if it's like, okay, I may not can go for a long distance of walking, but today I'm gonna walk down around the block. The
Right.
next day I'm gonna walk 2 more blocks. And them
Right.
2 more blocks end up turning into a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of you going hard in the beginning, if you try a little bit at a time and you go and you go and you go, then that's what you do. But also, even with the stress, you have to deal with what your stressors were,
Mm-hmm.
what your
Yes.
triggers were. Because if you don't deal with those triggers and what the stresses were, and you push it in the back of your mind, then when something offsets you, that's going to come up and pop up again. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to deal with it. And a lot of times, I can actually say both men and women are stressed, but I see a lot more stress in women because we carry a lot of weight on our shoulders, whether we are, daughters, sisters, mothers, or whatever. But women, we hold on to a lot more. And a lot of times we hold on to a lot more trauma and stress. Either it's going to cause us to have some heart condition, or it's going to cause something to be going on with the womb.
Mm-hmm.
And we see a lot of women that come in, and I did OBGYN, and it was a lot of women, especially minority women, whether they were black, whether they were Asian, or whether they were Spanish, minority women in general, where I seen a lot of fibroids.
Mm-hmm.
Fibroids, you had cancer or something going on abnormal with their pap, but then they had a lot of stressors going on. And a lot of times y'all got to understand, we have, I'm about to get spiritual on y'all. We have our
This is
our
great.
chakras, and our chakras, if they're not aligned and something is out of place, a lot of time that's you're gonna have some type of issue. If your teeth start bothering you, then there's some type of issue that you're not saying what's on your mind. Or if you have where you can't get creative, or something that's going on and you have problems with your stomach and your belly button area, then that's your solar plex.
Right.
But with women, it's about the wound, and we always on the go and don't get grounded. Now, don't get me wrong, there's men too, and you all have your stressors where y'all hold on to things and y'all want to fix everything and do everything, but at the same time we all have equal parts. But I also say it's also good too to be able to have someone to talk to you and point out some of the things that you could actually do or need to do. And then sometimes we are just holding on to some type of traumas, or having that notion, as we learn as kids, that oh, if you're never in first place is never good enough, and it turns you into a perfectionist, then you stress out about the little minor and small stuff. And the only
Mm-hmm.
reason I'm saying that, because I was like that, and to a point I still am. I'm still working on it, because it does hinder you and prevent you from doing certain things. But at the same time, it's just like, that is a part of the narrative where we have to understand. Like, it's okay to change it up and to use olive oil. It's okay to go and get fresh produce or fresh fruit versus canned fruit. Or if you can't get the fresh fruit, get some frozen vegetables, or something like that. It's just little stuff that we have to change up, because I know once I went to middle school, medical nursing school, canned vegetables was a no in my house.
I
It
know
was,
that's right.
when you go to nursing school, you be like, oh, okay, I'm not buying this or
Yeah.
this or this or this. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. But you know what? Here's something that I hear often. So a lot of times people feel like if you tell them to modify, that means you want them to be perfect. Have you heard people say stuff like that?
I have, I have, I have, I
What do
have.
you say to that?
I say to that, and with them, I'd be like, all right, let's go and look up the word modify and see what it's defined as. Because a lot of times people don't really know the true definitions of some words.
Hmm.
They assume that modify means this,
Yeah.
or they assume, and I have to actually break it down, and actually sometimes giving the definition, because, they may not know, but they're assuming some things. But I'm just like, you know, even if you just it's not completely. Now if you in here eating a bag of chips every day all day, then we don't have to cut that out. You know what I'm saying? If you can dwindle it down where you eating maybe bags of chips 2-3 times a week, and then you could dwindle it down from there, I'll be
Yeah.
more understanding. But when they do hear the word modify, they be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh my god!" And I'll be like, that's what my customer was saying. She was like, "Yeah, my daughter was like, I need to modify my stuff and use olive oil, but does it taste like olives?" And I'm like, "No, ma'am, it doesn't."
That
You
doesn't
know,
taste like olives.
because it's
That's
made from
cute.
olives, because it was
Yeah,
olive oil,
that's
and I was
cute.
like, "No, ma'am, it doesn't taste like olives." And I was just like, okay. But I had once I explained to her, and I'm like, look, I use it myself. I'm like, when I saute vegetables and everything like that, I use extra virgin olive oil. There's nothing wrong with it,
Mm-hmm.
So I think she had to hear that. I use it, and I'm like, you could get it robust, you could get it light, you can get it this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you can get it in different flavor profiles. It does not taste like olive. I was like, it's thicker than vegetable oil. And I said, and even if you go to shallow fry something, the doctor said, okay, well, since you're using olive oil, you can have something fried twice a month or something. I'm like, it's better for you, or grapeseed oil. So
Yeah.
she kind of like understand. But yeah, when they hear that word, anything that has to do with modify or
Mm-hmm.
change, they're
Yeah.
like, oh no, no,
Yeah.
no. And I'm
They
like,
resist it. They'll resist it.
yeah,
Right.
but then they won't change until something
Happens.
drastic happens.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, and that's the thing that I think really is the message for most people is recognizing that wellness is a journey. Like you don't
Yes, it is.
change one thing and then think you're gonna achieve something. Like even if you do the one thing for let's say a year and you go back to what you used to do, you're only resetting back to where you started,
Mhm.
you know? And so being committed to the journey, right? So for example, if you decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur, that's a whole lifestyle shift. That's a whole
That is.
mindset shift. That's a whole, experience shift where you can't do the things you used to do before and think you're going to be successful in this space right here. And so, I'm not sure how to communicate that better to like the mainstream, but like literally if something's going on, if you're starting to see symptoms, that means it's been going on for a long time and we're just now getting to the point of seeing it physically in the body. And so, one of the things that I also hear often is this statement of unknown origin.
Yes. And I don't like to hear that, because there's something that it will let you know that something is going on. You
Yeah.
know, it, we all we know our bodies better than the medical professional. You know, so sometimes we will go and say, "Oh, well, I did have that, but I didn't think it was a problem because it wasn't really bothering me."
Hmm.
You know, and I'm just like, look, you got to let somebody know if you are taking some medicine and it gives them a metallic taste in your mouth. You need
That's
to let
not
somebody
normal.
know,
Right.
you
No,
know?
that's not normal.
Or if every time that you drink this, your fingertip starts to tingle, or you have some type of little itching, you got to let people know. I guess if they think if it's not bad enough where it's killing them, then they're okay. And I
Hmm.
have to tell people, like, no, I'm like, a lot of times, if you are eating this certain food for 30 plus years, and then all of a sudden you have an onset where you have a clogged artery, then it's like, you've been doing this for 30 years now. Can you reverse it?
Right.
Possibly, but then you have to start, thinking about and balancing out. Like, my dad, he said stuff, well, my grandma ate it and they ate it and I'm gonna eat it too. And I'm like, Daddy, but a lot of stuff that they ate, it wasn't processed like we have it processed now. And I'm like, so you have to still watch what you're eating, Daddy. I'm
Yeah.
like, even with the fast food restaurants and the fast food industry, everything going on with the cost of food and everything. And you're starting to see now that a lot of these um fast food restaurants like Wendy's and Burger Kings, they're offering like biggie bags and stuff where you can take $5, but like, oh, I get a lot for $5.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, what does it do to your body? You
Right.
know, or I've heard people say right now, oh, it's cheaper for me to go out to eat than it is for me to cook. But then I'm remembering, like, when my grandmother went through that era of the recession as well. So my grandmother, growing up as a child, even it was her living by herself, she had a really big, long deep freezer, and you go in there, and she had bags of blanched, vegetables or fruits and stuff that was picked during the season. So she just pull it out and just cook things when she wanted to. And I'm just like, I want to be like my grandma. My grandma, she ate good and she did healthy, because when she passed, she was 97.
Wow.
And she has a niece right now that's still alive, and her niece is 6 years older than her. She's 107. So
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, yeah, that was like, so surely I'm gonna listen to what my grandma was telling me versus what the doctors is telling me, because I'm seeing a lot more people with the regimens and things that they're taking, like their lives are being cut short.
Yeah.
It's either, somebody has been getting the wrong medicine for years and it's done a toll on their body, and when the second doctor figures it out, it's a little too late.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm just kind of, and that even with certain eating habits. Now, don't get me wrong, I do get a little fast food here and there, but I do like to, make sure that I do healthy food, healthy eating. Because, like, one thing my mom says about my kids and my sisters is, they was like, I like your kids. Your kids will eat just about anything. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, if it's asparagus, they gonna eat it. If,
Hmm.
if it's a kiwi, they're gonna eat it. They probably done ate some stuff that you haven't ate. But I'm making sure that they're versatile, so they know that you don't have to just stick to the standard stuff. You have some kids that all they want to do is eat chicken nuggets. They
Yeah.
was like, if I try to them get them to eat something else, they won't eat it. I said, well,
Yeah.
back
Let
in
me
the
tell you
day,
something.
I couldn't get up from the table until I
Right.
ate it, and if I fell asleep, it was going to be seeing me in the morning.
Right.
But I do, I do agree with you when you say X, Y, Z.
Right.
You know.
That's so funny. I was at the barbershop the other day and they were saying the same thing about kids at the barbershop where like the parent come in and be like, "Oh, my kid don't like to sit down and get their hair done." It's like, "But what you mean though? Like if we here to cut hair, it's time to cut hair."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what we need to do about that, but I listen, I have girls, so I never really struggled with that. But anyway, are there what are some things that some challenges that you feel like you've experienced over the past, like as an entrepreneur?
Well, the challenges as an entrepreneur is basically being in the industry that's kind of seen as a stigma. Even cannabis and the herbal industry is not kind of seen. It's not really well welcome, because it's like you're going against the norm
Hmm.
of the actual pharmaceutical companies, or you're going against what the actual medical, because it's still in the medical field where cannabis. As nurses, we can't physically touch the cannabis with the THC 9.
Hmm.
So I still have some challenges, but when I actually talk to people who do consume, and I tell them about the terpenes and stuff and everything like that, and explain to them about the different strands, they be like, wow, you know your stuff. And I'll be
Hmm.
like, it's important for me to know my stuff, because when you come in and you ask about something, I'm able to give you the information. But a lot of times, sometimes information is not well received, you
Yeah.
know? So I've started to go with the flow of, letting the client or a person that I talk to, say something and talk, and I, agree with them on the certain things that I agree with. And I'd be like, well, you say this worked, but it's not really working for you. So I was like, why don't you might want to try this, because I see that you're saying it's not working for you anymore. And that's kind of been a challenge. And also being the challenge is that everybody is not really, well, I'm not going to say everybody. Some people are like, oh, well, if it didn't come from my doctor, I'm not going to do it. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
people do feel
oh,
that way.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, well, you're good. There's other people that really want to actually use something other than that. So that's kind of been a challenge. And as far as an entrepreneur, being a challenge too is being able to be more confident in talking about this,
Yeah.
because a lot of my family members are kind of against it. There's other people against it. And I'm just at the point like, look,
It
you're
is
only
what
against
it
it because
is.
it is what it is, but you're only against it because you don't really know. When you don't
Right.
really know something, you're against something, and you just turn your shoulder because you don't really want to get the education behind it.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's a part of it. But other than that, that's like been my biggest challenge. And the other challenge has been social media, because of certain herbs or whatever they want to, shadow ban and everything like that. I'm like, so if you're shadow banning me, Does that mean that this is true? Because that's
Who
usually
knows?
when they shadow ban you. So we
Who
go. That's
knows?
another subject.
Yeah. But the being able to talk about it, that part of it is a really big deal.
Yes,
And I know you're a spiritual person, so you do know that if you're gifted with some sort of knowledge, it doesn't serve us or the people that it's intended to serve if we keep it to ourselves. And
that
so,
is correct.
that's a lot of the work too, is to be able to help people to understand that there is more to know than what's been taught, and there are people out here that have that information and are willing to share it, and obviously you're one of them. So um, I think the work you're doing is amazing.
Thank you. So it's the work you're doing as well.
Oh,
Hmm.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any last things that you wanted to share before we go?
Yes, the one thing I really want to share with everybody, with my business, I have a saying that education is awareness.
Yeah.
And it's a very strong point because a lot of times people are not aware of things because they don't educate themselves.
Yeah.
So instead of going against the norm or saying something, please look into it and get some education. And if you don't know where to go or where to start, just make sure you tap into someone that has the proper calling in that industry. And
Hmm.
one thing I can actually say is I like to talk about what I talk about, and I like to teach what I like to teach about.
Hmm.
I'm very helpful, and it's a lot of other people in our tribe, especially Ashley and a lot of other people that are in our tribe that are very helpful with different information that they talk about. Whether it's yoga, whether it's being a Pisces,
Yeah.
whether it's being lupus, and whether it's starting your own consuming lounge. We all come together and we have something that is different, but we have a lot that is in common. And the main thing is in common with all of us is something that we want to help and for you all to be able to navigate in this cannabis culture, not the cannabis community, but the culture.
Yeah.
We are all about the culture, not the community. We're not here just to make a quick buck. We're
Yeah.
here to actually, teach you and help you understand. But we have different areas in that industry that we have. So
Let me
that's what
tell
I
you
want to leave
something.
with.
If I was out here trying to get rich, I'm going to sell me some purses, okay? Because everybody want a
Yes,
purse.
yes, yes, they do.
Because this shit ain't easy. I'm sorry, darn it, I cussed.
It's okay. It's not easy, but what I've learned from being a business owner of another business that anything that you are passionate about, it never comes easy.
Yeah.
You have everybody wants things to happen like right now, and then it goes in a little stepping stone. And as you accomplish stuff, it makes you feel even better. You know,
Yeah.
so that's how I kind of look at it.
And that's been my experience. I feel like the more that I move things out the way, it feels like I'm moving mountains out the way, the more that it's like, this is actually kind of fun. This is a good time we having. So it's been a pleasure working with you, Sharetta, seriously. And I'm really happy you're able to come on and let people know what you're doing in the community, how you're helping serve your clients in all the many ways that you do, because you didn't touch on some of that stuff. But
I do.
where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Canna Bee Hypnotized. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn at Sharetta Scott. And then I
Yeah.
also have a website as well, which is cannabeehypnotized.com. And then you also can find us with me and my husband because we do community events as well. And it's sponsored by Canna Bee Vibez, Mom and Pops, neighborhood convenience store that we do a community thing where we do host pop-up shops for other business owners because we want to see them make it. So you can find that at One Love Fest 757.com.
And you're in Virginia, right?
Yes, I am. I'm in the Hampton Roads area, located in Chesapeake, Virginia.
Sounds
Yes.
good. And then my last question for you, can you please spell out your Instagram account so people don't mess it up when they try and type it in? Because I would have had it at the
Yes.
bottom of the screen if I knew how to spell it.
Okay. It's Canna is Canna, and then it's the Bee. Hempmatize is Hemp, Hemp, Notized. Canna Bee Hypnotized.
Got it.
And you'll see this logo that you see on my shirt is what you will see on the website. Yes.
Cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking your time out
Thank
to do
you.
this with me. Happy 420, first of
Same
all.
to you. Same to
And
you.
it's been a good time. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.
Hold on.